Ladies and gentlemen, it is Little Mad Tiger once again. I have been gone recently. If you have not noticed, I actually have deleted my Discord. I run by a different name now. I'm not going to state it for security reasons. However, I am going to say that for now, I am still watching over the Discord and everything like that, still keeping up with the community and everything like that. However, I am running under an anonymous name. I'm going to try to post more videos. Obviously, it's a little difficult for me right now if you know exactly what I'm doing, or even if you know at all. Anyway, we're going to start this video with a little introduction on Java. Java is one of those back-end languages that is essential for pretty much any type of component of programming. So let's say you want to do like, you want to build the self-driving car, or you want to create a public list of information for your clients, or whoever you're deciding to code for. Java is probably going to be the #1 programming language you use as far as just the generalized aspect of, creating lists, creating information, creating vital sources of data for self-driving cars. You can build it also for NASA. You can work on fixing software updates and debugging Java as well. It's a little harder, obviously, but now we're going to go a little bit into Java. Obviously, Java has its perks. Obviously, what you would normally use Java with, it is an OOPL language, or we have an OOS language, basically, which is essentially meaning that Java can be not only ran on not just a dirty scale of like random bitch-ass lines. Yeah, sorry about that. Not appropriate for the video. However, it's more per se a organized list of code that you can encipher or decipher per se. And you can use this inherently in the future when you're having to update these files back into your program. And another good thing about Java is that, I'm going to close that window real quick, is just the aspect of Java in general can work with all types of applications. It's very neutral as far as high performance goes. Like per se, let me see real quick. Yeah, see what I mean? It can be expanded on the model. Basically what I already said there. It's also very secure too, so you can import certain files you want. You can also secure those files within the Java code. Usually you have to say like void static, yeah, blah blah blah. And now let's kind of show you a little bit about like per se what we're dealing with Java. Obviously we're declaring a class. This is going to be your main function, public static void main string args. This is going to be pretty much the same type of code you're going to run when you want to start your Java program. Obviously you have to declare your class though, so hello, public static void, then you have to print the line hello Java. What it's basically going to do is it's going to input as hello Java. Basically what it's going to say is, yeah, he commented that out, but what he's essentially taking is hello Java on the screen. When you're declaring this main void right here, this is basically going to just run once. Public static void. Void in Java is more per se, it runs on one-time instance. It's not going to come back as an actual function. Usually you'd write something, let me think about this. You usually write an integer, or you write another static main, and you could do like a static function, or you could do like a static for, so forth. And with Java, there's a very, very good reason why we use Java, is to essentially create a very well done style of code and in an organized, timely fashion. Java programmers generally make a lot more than per se front-end programmers or most back-end programmers, mainly because their language is most popular. Everyone's talking about, oh, Python's going to kill Java. That's a load of bullshit. I'm going to say that right now. And Python is a main language that is used it is another object-oriented language. However, with Python, it's more aimed towards like design aspect rather than the functionality and the distribution aspect that Java provides and will still provide for years and years. So Until Python figures out a way to do something regarding that, as you can see, I mean, obviously, we already know that this is going to be a pretty good scenario here. And then what we got here, code's reusable. Yeah, and that's a very good advantage with the OOP, object-oriented programming, per se. And then obviously we can declare if for statements, as you could say right here, start expression. When you're using if statements, you have to actually type out the statements. Statement 1, statement 2. Sometimes what you will have to do as well is when you're declaring this, you'll have to write something like you'll have to declare it in brackets. So you'll declare it like in the parentheses right here, or sorry, bracket. And then you'll actually close it out with the semicolons, and then you can test run a code. Here we go. Great example here. So if B is greater than A, system print line B is greater. And what we're basically saying is integer A is equal to 20. Integer is just a string of data, so just in case you're not familiar with math. Public class sample. Obviously, we're starting with our main subject, public static void main, string args, parentheses, blah, blah, blah. And now we're essentially saying that B is greater than A. So we already know that's true. So it's going to return as a, whoops, one sec here. Alright, so what it's basically going to return is run B is greater, because what it's essentially saying is it's testing these integers, and it's printing them out here, and it's already testing them with this if statement. An if statement basically is demonstrating if whether or not a line of code is true or not, and the expression comes out true. There's also other elements such as switch statements. I'll show you those. So as you can tell, switch variable, case 1, when you can execute your code, you could choose whatever variable you'd like. I'll choose variable, I'll do D. Alright, so case 1, I'll usually make case 1A, break. When you say break, essentially what your code is going to do is it's going to stop right there. Then you're basically executing each code line at break, break. Think of BR in HTML. This is similar to BR in HTML, so something to get looked at right there. And then what we got here. And break is essentially going to run each type of code. It's not like HTML, where when you say BR, it still continues. What happens is it's only going to execute this line of code. Once after break, it's not going to execute that line anymore past this. So it's just going to run case N, case 1, case N, default, and that's it. It's going to run one by one. You can see this example here. I'm declaring my class. We got my function, integer A equals 5, switch A, case 1, system printout, you choose 1, break, okay, did not prove true, so system 2, 2, 3, 4, okay, so integer equals 5, okay, so case 5, you choose 5, alright, you choose 5 is there. You see why I'm saying there. Essentially speaking, although you have this line of code here, what you're doing is you're basically running them and seeing if it's true. So essentially what you're doing is you're comparing your values and testing the expressions to make sure if they're true or false. If it's false, it won't run. If it's true, it will run, as you can see right here. Java is very simple in that you can really learn to understand. You can actually do a lot of things with Java. There's just, I can show you my examples with code. However, I'm a little looped up at work, so I'll kind of keep it short. Obviously, now we get into while, do loops. While statements are just basically what they're doing is they're going to test and see if the condition is true. Evaluate condition. If it's true, execute statements. Then it goes back to the evaluating condition. If it's false, it stops. So essentially what we're doing here is string args, integer n equals 1, times equals 5. So essentially what you're doing with times is you're going to test how many times you can run. So while n is So sorry, while n is less than or equal to times, system will print Java while loops plus n. So what it's going to do is basically it's going to, and then you see n plus plus. What it's essentially going to do is it's going to add, if you think of math, you think of, let me think a good example, marginal. Marginal. What does marginal mean? So it's equal to one more than something that is given. So so 1 plus 1 plus 1, and as you can tell here, it runs that. So while loops plus n. Okay, so first one runs 1. The second one, think of 1 plus 1, 2. Think of 2 plus 1, 3. Think of 3 plus 1, and so forth. What it's essentially doing is it's taking the last number ran from the execution, and it's basically adding 1. Because essentially what you've already done, you've already declared this. When you add that semicolon and then you add this, you're essentially saying, okay, take whatever runs here and just add it 1. It's simple as that. And I mean, what it's essentially doing is it's going to run times. Times is basically the amount in which you can run this code. So it's not going to, so if you write 10 and then you write this, it's going to go all the way to 10. So now you understand what I'm trying to get at. Let's go to do loops. Do loops are simple. They're the same thing, testing and see if a value is true or not. Execute statements, evaluate condition, false, stop, true. Now this is different with do statements. Do statements run a lot, such as switch statements. When they actually come out true, they just go back to executing the statement and then they stop. Basically what you're essentially doing is you're giving it statements, blah blah blah. So let me actually go to a demonstration to show you a little more. So public class sample, you're given your initial function code here. Integer n equals 1, times equals 0. Okay. Do system out print Java do while loops plus n plus plus, while n is less than or equal to times. Alright, now get that. Why? Now why is it going to run 1? Think about it for a minute. Okay. If you didn't really get the answer, here's how I figured this out. Is when you're testing this do function, you're wanting to essentially write that code and see, hey, while loops, do while loops plus n. So n1, and then what you're doing essentially is you're running it only once. Think about that for a minute. So while is equal, less than, n is less than or equal to times. So since it's not equal to or less than, it runs 1 because essentially it's not running as a true statement. So that's why we use the while statement as well to test and clarify that. So, and then let's go into for loops. For loops are probably the easiest to learn in Java. They essentially run like for loops in JavaScript, so forth. So let me get that real quick. So I'm going to just show you an example here. Public class sample, public static void main string args. So you're declaring each variable in each function. Sorry, you're declaring a class. Essentially, you're declaring your portion of code. And then integer n equals 1 times 5. Okay, we can see it runs up to 5 times. Good. For n equals 1, n is less than or equal to times, n equals n plus 1. So 1 plus 1. System out print Java for loops plus n. So essentially what it's going to do is it's going to take this and put it there, and it's going to run, instead of having to type n plus plus, you've already added that here. N equals n plus 1. So basically 1 plus 1 and so forth. N equals 1. This is going to be saying n is less than or equal to times, and then you can run that code here. As you can see, it runs out. Essentially, for loops eliminate the need for while loops, or they eliminate do loops, because essentially you're adding all that into one line of code. And it's actually probably the most efficient line of code that you can use in Java, as far as a for looping to test variables and make sure that they're true or false. You can also add a Boolean statement to see if you can run true and false as well. Boolean is basically a function code you can use to test and see true and false statements. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Again, I know I've been gone doing some community service, I'll put it that way. And I'll just kind of get back to you guys as soon as possible. Alright, thank you guys, and have a good one.